Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking you through some of the most important stats for the AK-74U, then showing you my favourite low-level setup for the gun. Although the addition of a detailed gun statistics was a positive change, the way some of the stats are presented isn't overly clear, and they can be a bit misleading, especially as some of the important information has been left out. Once I've broken down the key stats for the AK-74U, I'll show you my favourite low-level build for the gun, so you can create effective setups without having to unlock every attachment first, which can be especially important this year with gun levelling being so slow. First, we're going to be talking about the AK-74U's base stats to get an understanding of how to get the most out of it with the attachments we put on. Starting with its strength, it has the best time to kill at 258 milliseconds and the highest bullet velocity at 500 meters per second in the SMG class, although the fastest TTK does come with a big asterisk. As I said in the introduction, the detailed statistics in-game do miss out some information, and in the case of the 74U, this is key to understanding just how good this gun actually is. On face value, you'd think great, it has a high rounds per minute at 697 and a relatively high damage of 38, meaning it only takes 4 shots to kill, therefore it's clearly the best SMG in the game. But then we have to take into consideration its damage drop-off. In the stats, it tells you its effective damage range is 7.62 meters, and this basically means the gun is only a 4-shot kill at this distance. And with the game's current maps tending towards slightly longer distance gunfights, I don't find myself in many engagements under that range. After 7.62 meters, the gun now requires 5 shots to kill, increasing its TTK to 344 milliseconds. And from 19 meters plus, it takes an extra shot to kill, taking the TTK all the way up to 430 milliseconds. From above 90 meters, it seems to be a constant 6-shot kill. You may be thinking, what about headshots? Does this help at all? But again, I couldn't find a distance where a single headshot would reduce the number of shots to kill, so I wouldn't advise aiming for them with this gun. There are some cases where multiple headshots will change the number of bullets to kill, but it's pretty hard to consistently hit multiple headshots during a fight. So I think it's simpler to go for guaranteed body shots over riskier multiple headshots. Now this being said, it's important to have perspective, so let's compare how distance affects the TTK of all the automatic SMGs. For this comparison, I'm going to be comparing the SMGs at 5, 10, 20 and 30 meters just for simplicity, but I plan on doing a more in-depth SMG comparison at some point in the near future. At 5 meters, we have already discussed the 74U beats out all the other SMGs for time to kill. Once we jump up to 10 meters though, we can see that it goes right the way down to the bottom of the list. At this point, it's the only gun to have gone past its maximum damage range. Once we get to 20 meters, it's still not looking great. It's now above the Milano, but still a long way behind the other two, especially the Bullfrog. Finally, at 30 meters, the 74U's TTK is a lot more respectable. At this point, all the guns are at their maximum bullets to kill, and the AK is only 10 milliseconds behind the MP5 and above the Bullfrog now. At 30 meters plus, I'd go as far as saying that the 74U is the best SMG in the game, even with a slightly slower TTK than the MP5 due to it having double the gun's bullet velocity and needing 1 less bullet to kill. It makes it a lot easier to hit shots at those ranges, and as you need less shots to hit to take out an opponent, it's easier to get a kill at that range. Now that we have the full picture of the gun's damage profile, we can see that under 7 meters and above 30 meters, it strongly competes to be the best SMG in the game. The problem with that statement is that basically you'd want it the other way around. Most SMG fights are likely to be in the 10 to 30 meter range, and if you're planning on getting into fights under 7 meters, you should be considering a shotgun. And if you're trying to outgun someone who's 30 meters away, all the assault rifles have a TTK at least 100 milliseconds quicker than the 74U. So really, this gun's strengths are the weaknesses of the SMG class in general. Now we've got through the damage numbers, you might be thinking, well, if they designed this gun to be effective at longer ranges, maybe it has a lower recoil to help with that. You'd be wrong. I've got the automatic SMG's horizontal and vertical recoils on screen, and you can see it clearly has worse recoil than both the MP5 and the Bullfrog. I'll now add the average of all the ARs just for comparison, and although the 74U has slightly better vertical recoil, its horizontal recoil is 4 times as worse, and especially in longer range engagements, vertical recoil is considerably easier to control than horizontal. So with 100 milliseconds slower time to kill and worse recoil, you definitely aren't going to be beating out any ARs at longer ranges. Just one final stat to mention, the 74U also has the slowest ADS time of all the SMGs at 300 milliseconds, the same as most of the assault rifles. Now we know exactly what this gun's about, we can start having a look at how to set up the AK-74U to help you get the most out of it. In these builds, I'm only going to be using gun attachments you gain up to level 19, at which point you'll have unlocked at least 2 attachments in each category, and this should only take you an hour or 2 of game time. Of course, the stronger attachments are unlocked later in the gun's progression, but to get to that point we want to make the gun as strong as possible to help us level it up quicker. Before we talk about the attachments that you should be using on this gun, I think there are a couple of notable ones that you don't need to include. So first of all, the iron sights are actually pretty clear. I've not had any problem with target acquisition without using a sight. Secondly, the 74U is the only gun in the SMG class where a barrel to increase its bullet velocity is not essential. These two characteristics of the gun mean we're pretty much free to mix and match from the other 6 categories. My current favourite setup is for getting right up in the faces of the enemy, taking advantage of the super quick time to kill at short ranges. As we're going to be playing close to the enemies, sometimes we're going to need to be hitting our shots before aiming down sights, so the 15% reduction in hipfire spread the steady aim laser gives us will help with that. For the next slot, I like to use the foregrip, which reduces the horizontal recoil by 15%. This just makes the gun slightly easier to handle and helps you stay on target at longer ranges. The third spot is filled using the wire stock. As this class is well suited for an aggressive playstyle, there will be some cases where you'll be caught sprinting by an opponent. The 10% reduction in sprint to fire time this attachment gives us will give the best possible chance of winning this type of gunfight. For the final 2 spots it comes down to personal preference. For the magazine attachment I like to use the 40 round drum, as it gives the opportunity to net another kill without reloading if you run into multiple enemies, but the tape mags would also definitely work with this build. And for the final attachment I have been running the speed tape. I find the 10% reduction in ADS time to nicely couple with the wire stock to transition from moving to being perfectly accurate as quickly as possible. But if you like to drop shot, the drop shot wrap is definitely the better choice. I don't use a muzzle attachment in this build, but if you find the AK's recoil difficult to control, I'd swap out the speed tape for the muzzle brake 5.56 to reduce your vertical recoil by 4%. Overall, I know in this breakdown the stats don't paint an amazing picture for this gun, but I actually really enjoyed using the AK-74U. It's definitely not the most meta weapon, but if you play to the gun's strengths, you can easily beat out some of the more meta weapons. My favourite component of this gun is easily the high bullet velocity, as it gives a much more consistent feel than the other SMGs, even with no attachments on. This coupled with the solid iron sights free up 2 attachment slots, allowing much more customization than the other SMGs, where at least one of these attachments are essential. If you found this video useful, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.